I'm Zainab. This is Alia.
Yeah.
Dr. Parvish Pandya is a senior academician and a bird, plant, reptile, and mammal expert. A PhD in zoology, Dr. Pandya has been teaching at various levels for more than 40 years. He is a resourceful person in the field of nature, environmental systems, biodiversity, climate change, and teacher training programs. He was formerly a vice principal and associate professor in zoology at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan's College in Mumbai, serving in the college from the year 1982 till 2018. Since August 2013, he is a consultant director for science and conservation with Sanctuary Nature Foundation, Sanctuary Asia, and Cub magazines. Dr. Pandya has been shaping and guiding numerous naturalists and has been awarded for his contributions to conservation and education. One of the awards he has received includes the Joint Green Teacher Award in 2010, and in June 2022, he was elected as a member of the governing council of the Bombay Natural History Society. His passions include photography, music, traveling, and yoga. So, could you provide a brief overview of your expertise in environmental conservation, especially in relation to bird species like sparrows?
Sure. So my primary interest of getting into wildlife started with birds. Way back when I was studying in college in my graduate course, and I had the opportunity of joining the Bombay Natural History Society, and through them and through my I would say colleague Shama Fateh Ali in Ruya College, I got the opportunity of going out with Dr. Salim Ali, Humayun Abdul Ali, J.C. Daniel, Robert Grubb. These were all stalwarts in the field of birds and several species of wildlife. So this is how my interest got kindled, and I started bird watching. And in about 2 years' time, I became they used to call me expert, but I would never say myself as an expert. But yes, I got a little experience in knowing names and behavior of birds and so on. And that's what started my journey and tryst with nature and biodiversity and environment. And then there was no limit at all, So going from one field to another, I got opportunity to learn several aspects, and I became a professor in 1982. And although my PhD later on was in cell biology, I used to talk and teach a lot about nature, wildlife, and environment systems. So this is where my interest modified into my passion, and my passion became my daily bread and butter, I would say. And then I started this course also in wildlife. I was being invited to a lot of places. I did bird surveys in several places. I started training forest department and officials and several other stakeholders in the field of birds, nature, and several aspects. So yes, this is how my interest, which started with birds, became a passion in environment and nature conservation.
Could you elaborate a little bit about what kindled your interest?
It was an outing into Sanjay Gandhi National Park to count birds. We used to call that as bird count. And I was taken by one of my senior student friends, and he took me to this BNHS bird count. And that's where I saw in the forest wild birds for the first time in my life. And I was really in awe, fascinated. And through that, I became a member immediately and then started bird watching.
What roles do sparrows play in the ecosystem and how do they correlate?
So if you look at the evolution of cities all over the world, let's talk about Mumbai. Okay. So 500 years ago, nobody knew what Mumbai is going to develop into. It was just a collection of islands, Salsette, and there were mangroves and seawater inundating and so on. At that time also, there must be several species of birds, animals, and so on, which were living in and around all these areas. There was, in fact, in 1840, there's a record of tiger also in South Mumbai. So you can imagine the diversity of birds and animals which were living 500 years ago. Now, slowly, as it became inhabited by humans, people modified the geography and the landscape. So it must have so happened that those species of birds and animals which could survive and get adapted in this human-dominated environment, only they survived. And those are the species you see more commonly in Mumbai now. So you talk about sparrows, bulbuls, mynas, the kite which flies, the rat, the bats which come and sit on the trees. So because of that, sparrows have survived, adapted, and they have lived in Mumbai and many cities in the world. So the role that they were playing in the ecosystem at that time would also be continued now because they have adapted here. And some of the roles might have got modified. Some of the roles might have changed. So earlier they were helping in seed dispersal of trees which were there. Even now they are doing. Earlier they were controlling insects because sparrows, apart from seeds, they eat insects. And while they are feeding on insects and they are visiting flowers to feed on those insects, they used to carry out the role of pollination. So they are doing even now. They used to be in the chain of the web of life. So all animals are either eating or be eaten. You know, the rule of nature is either you eat or you be eaten. So sparrows must be eating insects, but on the other hand, they must be a prey for several species of birds, cats, and so on. You know, I've seen cats catching sparrows, mynas predating on sparrows, kites eating sparrows, and so on. Apart from that, they must have also been an indicator to the changing environmental conditions of Mumbai. So they are the ones which show you that they can survive even in pollution and so on. So, but if the pollution rises a lot, then they can indicate, you know, like the caged birds which coal miners used to carry in those days. You know, similar to that, you should Google this. It's a very lovely canary birds were used by coal miners because if the pollution of the gas level increased in the mines, the first thing to die would have been these canary birds. So if the canary birds died, the miners came to know, rush, rush, get out of this. The pollution is too high and it's at risk. So even we can die. So similar to that, sparrows can also indicate, you know, and, you know, very funny, if you ask your parents, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was a nice small documentary made by the films division on sparrows. I suggest that after this, you have a look at it, you know. It's called Ek Chidiya Anek Chidiya. Probably you might have seen it, or if you ask your parents, they will show it to you
It's
immediately.
animated, isn't it?
It's animated.
Yeah, I've seen it.
But the chidiya is a sparrow. Okay. Now, what does that show you? That shows you about how together sparrows can also fight against hunters, against predators, and so on, you know. So it's a lesson, a moral lesson to be learned. But how the sparrow was used in our culture, in our storytelling, and so on, you know. So that is, it's an aesthetic value and cultural value that birds occupy, and sparrows are also very important because people saw these sparrows outside their houses. So chidiya became something which was imbibed in the stories right from the beginning.
You spoke about how they've been living in urban areas for such a long time. And what do you think might have changed that now they're declining after so many years?
Mumbai city as such has changed much more in the last 50 years as compared to the 400 years, I would say. The change has been very, very dramatic and drastic. So those sparrows would have got adapted to people living. So, you know, when you clean rice grains and so on, in the past, when you clean the grains, you'll throw the slightly damaged grain, you'll throw pebbles in the grain outside and all that. Sparrows, when they eat the grains, in their stomach, there is a grinder, like how you have grinder, mixer and grinder. Same way, there is a grinder in their stomach. So how do they grind the seeds that they eat? Between the layer of the stomach and the stones. So here is a stone, here's a layer, and in between that, there will be the grain, whatever they eat. And between the layer of the stomach and the stone, the grain will get powdered. You know, we have stopped throwing those slightly damaged seeds. We have stopped throwing the stones. On the other hand, whatever grains that we used to get in the past, some grains would fall because the bags would not be foolproof. Something will be open, you know, like those gunny bags which were there in the past. Today, everything comes in plastic bag, thick plastic bag, all grains. So where is there a chance of pilferage or spillage? If you have seen sparrows and their behavior, a very important hygiene behavior for them is taking bath with mud. It's called dust bathing. And a scientist who studied the dust before and after a sparrow had visited and taken bath with the dust found that in the dust now there were small tiny parasites which were there on the body of the sparrow. So they used the dust bathing to get rid of parasites on the body. Tell me, do you have outside your society building in the compound any mud? Everything has now become surfaced with tar, asphalt, cement, concrete. Wherever you have cement and concrete, no sparrow. If you come to Bhavan's College, where I taught for the last 37 years, there's so much of mud and there are so many sparrows. Literally, if anybody wants to see sparrows, come to Bhavan's College campus. Because there's so much mud. And without mud, sparrows cannot survive. It's also possible that other birds like crows and mynas and all, which are a predator on the sparrows, there's a dynamic equilibrium always being maintained. So if the predators increase, the prey species will always decrease. On the other hand, also maybe caterpillars and insects also have decreased in Mumbai because of A, less plants available for the insects to survive, B, more pollution in which these insects have died. So climate change has caused also changes in the city, and because of which invasive species have come in, nesting sites have decreased, trees have been chopped out. But I don't agree much about trees disappearing and because of which the sparrows nest disappearing or decreasing, because you see sparrows nesting in the fans above tube lights. Even an electric pole, if there's a hole, I've seen a sparrow nest in the hole of a metal post. So that cannot be the reason that nesting sites have decreased. But yes, trees have decreased, and because of trees decrease, flowers, insects, all these things have decreased. And nowadays, not many people tolerate a sparrow nest over the fan or over the tube light or anywhere, you know. So that's another problem.
As a professor, do you think it is important to educate people on the topic of sparrow decline?
Absolutely. There is a World Sparrow Day, and my students went out in the campus taking pictures of the sparrow and so on, because they were so motivated and telling people that we need to talk about sparrow because sparrow is a part of our urban biodiversity. What is urban biodiversity? Those species which are wild, Which species are wild? Which are not tame or which are not domesticated. So we have not domesticated sparrows, but they are all wild. They are moving around. They are occupying the landscape of the city. So sparrows are an integral part of the urban biodiversity. And as I said earlier, they are important to know about the health of the ecosystem, about the city and elsewhere. Please don't think that only domestic sparrows in the cities are the only species. We have several species of sparrows all over the world, and there are different species in the Himalaya, in the mountains, in elsewhere, in several parts of the world. So when I talk about sparrows, I'm talking about sparrows in general, but we are right now focusing more and more our attention on the urban sparrow population. Okay. So when you say you want to save sparrows, you will try and plant more trees so that there will be more flowers and insects and so on. Okay. So thereby human beings need to understand their own impact on the environment, because of which the sparrows are dying. So with the topic of sparrows, you're telling people in Mumbai also that, look, you are affecting the entire landscape of the city. We need to have more green spaces. We need to have more cleanliness, etc. We need to have more flowering and fruiting trees and so on. And you can use one species for entire wildlife conservation topic. So through one species, you can talk about so many different biodiversity aspects, economics, politics, environmental conservation, climate change. All these we can talk about using one species. So as I said, yes, we need to, not just professors, I'm saying every aware citizen must talk to their neighbors, friends, family, extended family, everywhere. You should talk about sparrows, but not pigeons.
Not pigeons?
Because in the cities, pigeons are becoming a slight problem on the human health. The fecal matter of pigeons attracts bacteria, and these bacteria enter into the respiratory tract of human beings, and they cause dangerous diseases affecting the lungs. One particular disease is called cystic fibrosis, and many people have died because of this. So we are telling people not to allow pigeons in your own surroundings. If you allow pigeon, then be sure that somebody in your family's health is at risk. You see several papers now, people have published scientific papers to show, people used to have air conditioning ducts. We still have. And in that air conditioning duct, pigeons come and nest. And when you turn on the air conditioner, you feel fresh air is coming from outside. Actually, it's all bacteria containing air coming into your house. And you're breathing those bacteria, and those bacteria cause lung infections. So those people who allow pigeons to remain in their own housing complexes or near your houses and so on, take this for granted that your children or even elders may suffer from lung infection. And there are, as I was saying, scientific papers which have been published to prove this relationship between the fecal matter of pigeon and bacteria and human health hazard. So the Bombay municipality has now imposed a fine of 500 rupees to somebody who is throwing seeds or grains to feed the pigeons.
So I was going to ask you about what we can do at an individual level to help, but I think you kind of covered that.
No, there are a few things which I also remember that Sanctuary Nature Foundation, my organization, is promoting. Having nest boxes for sparrows. And you can make nest boxes out of waste material, out of shoebox, out of any, those oil cans that you get for 5 liters and so on. On the side of the oil can, on the top, you can make a hole. The hole should be just small enough for a sparrow to enter and get out. And you can use your own creativity in painting the oil can from outside and making it look like the bark of the tree and hang it. And inside the can, you can put some grass blades and so on. And then the sparrows will start making nests there. So nest boxes for sparrows, that would be a very good thing to do. Number one. Number two, plant trees which attract birds, insects. So when you have insect attraction, then sparrows will come and feed on those insects will lay their eggs and caterpillars, and seeds will also attract birds like sparrows and so on. Third is, you need to use neem-based extracts and so on for garden plants and not use chemicals as pesticides. Very important. Fourth, if you have a vermicomposting, then the sparrows will love to feed on those worms that you have. In many buildings now, they have vermicomposting entire thing that they do it. Okay. Fifth is to join organizations like Bombay Natural History Society and all, which not just talk about sparrows, but about birds and other animals in general. Next is, reduce throwing plastics and so on outside. You might throw small plastic stuff, like it could be buttons, it could be small plastic badges, pins, needles, anything, which is of plastic. And imagine these birds thinking it's a very attractive caterpillar they taken into their body, their stomach will be full of, these things. In fact, again, I'm saying that there are nesting records of chicks of birds, young birds, which die in the nest. And then they opened up the stomach of the nest and they found it was full of all plastic things which the parent brought for the chick, thinking it is some living animal. So yes. And as I say, that science, not everybody can participate, but there is something called as citizen science. So citizens can help in creating awareness. So if every society lists or just tells that near their house, they saw 5 sparrows, 10 sparrows, 0 sparrows, then we will have a map of Mumbai showing in which area how many sparrows are there. Interesting, no? So you can come to know how many compounds are having cement and concrete flooring and how many have got mud.
So I think that's it. Thank you so much. That was very insightful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
as
sir. It was
well.
an honor to meet you.